It's good afternoon for you guys that are in UK. It's still good morning here for me, 6 in the morning, California. And this behind me is not California. This was Hawaii. I was on vacation there, got my family there, and my daughters did this to my hair. So if you're like, who is this blonde guy? Yeah, it's still me, still Armando. Good to see you guys there. Let me put my slide decks in here. And you are in the right place. You are in Hawaii. No, you're not in Hawaii. You're in Tobago. And for me, who from Brazil, this particular word data, the Tobago word, down there in Brazil called toboggan. So my brain is always like, which one to go? So thank you for the confusion and the name. Appreciate it. It's a good exercise for me. All right, so good to be here again. Thank you for having my session, for accepting my session on the Synapse Spark from zero to hero. And we have 45 minutes to go through this, so let's go ahead and get started. First, let's get expectations straight, right? You are not going to be a master of Spark in 45 minutes. That's not the idea. But my intention here is to give you enough tools. So after the day today, because the day is super full, I've been connected since 2 in the morning here, following all the guys. I wish I was here since midnight when the event started, but I was asleep. So I got here 2 in the morning, started learning a lot of things and see all the other presenters. Amazing sessions, amazing lineups. And of course, after this day, you're going to be with the brain full of information. You're going to sort out what you're going to do. And my intention here in this session is to give you tools, to give you resources where you can go and get started with hands-on, right, on Azure Synapse Analytics, in particular the Spark Pool service inside it. So this particular session is kind of an introduction section. It's not an advanced, in-depth, internals thing inside Spark Pool. It's actually a session that I put together for one of my customers. They were like, how do I do this? How do we use this? And we do this, lunch and learn sessions in there. And I put this one together for them to get started. They love it. Say, okay, I'm gonna see if the rest of the community like it too. So here I am. If this is the first time we are seeing each other, or you are seeing me over the streaming because I can't see you from here, I have a social media link on LinkedIn, social media presence in LinkedIn. Easy now. In LinkedIn, I used to have a Twitter. I canceled that. Twitter is too busy, too crazy over there. So I kept only LinkedIn. I do have Facebook, but Facebook is no technical whatsoever, right? It's just personal stuff. If you want to see more pictures about how I connect with me on Facebook. I am a Microsoft MVP on data platform. MVP is an award the Microsoft gives to professionals like you and me who like to share what we know about Microsoft technology, in particular, in our case, right, on the data platform side, and nowadays mostly in the cloud. So that's that. I do hold a bunch of Microsoft certifications. I just passed the new one yesterday. I have this business partner, and they need a particular certification in there. I said, Armando, can you take that one? Say, oh, let me try. And I passed first try. And I hold a couple of them, and I have a lot of them actually because I am a Microsoft certified trainer. And if you want to teach a class, you get a certified in technology of that class. So, for Synapse, for instance, I do have the certification for that one. I highly recommend you. I just came out from the certification session. So if you missed that one, go take a look on Kevin's tips about how to get certified. Great tips in there, and I highly recommend you, not just for the certification to get certified. I highly recommend you to get certified, not just for the certification itself, but because it forces you to go and investigate and learn things you don't play with on your day-to-day job, right? Your everyday job, your daytime, your day job. So please consider that a very good thing to do. All right, so let me get in here. Let's jump to this. All right, and let me get my Hawaii waves a break. I'll go back to that later. Let's get this one here going. So what do we have here? You probably have heard about this Microsoft. I mean, it's not a Microsoft approach, but we see a lot of this acronym being thrown around in Microsoft designs and system designs called HTAP is an acronym, right? The letters HTAP or HTAP. And the idea of HTAP is a hybrid transactional analytical process or database. So that's what I try to do with this ugly one here. You know, Microsoft, when they do the logos and the diagrams, they do it great. I do this primitive PowerPoint icons in here. But in any case, the idea in here is depending on the size of your data, the volume of your data, you could actually keep both the OLTP data and OLAP data in the same data engine. And SQL Server, the Microsoft SQL Server now 2022, right, and the offers we have in the clouds, and SQL Server is designed to support that. You can do this, you know, for regular tables, you have for OLTP, you have the regular tables, and you have the indexes. I'm sorry, blanking out. We have the OLTP, we have the regular tables, you know, with cluster index and or regular non-cluster index, and you have all the elements to support running transactions. And you can create shadow tables on the same engine. You can create shadow tables using column store indexes, for instance, where they keep the data shadowed, right? In between these two, data comes in here, it will be added in here. From time to time, you have to run some maintenance here to keep performance. But you do have the data shadowed in this guy here. And by having it here, on a format that is designed for query performance, right, to retrieve for data analytics and performance for data analytics, you have you know, both worlds in one engine, and you know, life should be good here, right? The problem with this is these two elements in here, you know, these two types of data, they are under the same compute. And here I'm starting using some of the words that will make you a hero when you start designing these things and implementing your solutions, right? You have to put apart the two elements you have, the two elements you have, the data and the compute. So the bigger database comprising these two, my intention here is that the larger one that will be SQL Server is actually the compute elements. It's like the VM running your thing, and the VM running your thing, or the bare metal running your SQL instance. When you work like this, and a lot of people do, you know, a lot of my clients, they have elements like this. Actually, I have designed a solution not long ago for someone that was mistakenly placed on a dedicated SQL pool in Synapse, and they were trying to run OLTP on a dedicated SQL pool, and it bumps. You know, it's not for that. So we moved them out of there into a SQL offering in a cloud to do HTAP. We implement that one. But the problem with this one here is when you start designing and working like this, especially when we're working on premise, and what bugs people when they're moving into the clouds and specifically into Spark is SQL that's running these two workloads in here. It's always available. It's always there. It's always running, right? SQL is always running there. And because SQL is always running there, the idea, one of the elements we have in the Spark processing mindset is not very clear in here. Because if I want to run a query on this table, SQL is there. I just connect and run my query. If I want to create a report of this, SQL is there. I just run and do my query. But when we move into the separation of these two elements, and especially when you go to the clouds, I mean, make sure I'm going to click this on the right place here. When you go to the separation of these two elements, and especially when we go to the cloud, this is my chair here just behind me. What happens in here is my element, now I have two compute elements. This guy here should be working supposedly 24/7 because it's supporting my website or my applications running on cell phones. People are inputting data, right, and updating data all the time into my transactional system. But over here, I have peaks of utilization and then long values of utilization. And people coming here just to see the reports from time to time. I may have a Power BI data set that comes to this guy here once a day and do a refresh. The utilization here is way more spotty than the utilization down here. And keeping this compute available 24/7 for some spot queries that happens from time to time, or when there is a team of data analysts that want to jump into the data and process the data, is a waste of resources, especially when you go into the cloud. So that client that I mentioned earlier, what in an effort trying to illustrate that, I did this. Let me get my connection guy over here. Let's see, there we go. My screen there. I mean, my browser there. And I see a microphone. Is that a question coming? Nope. All right. And here. So here I have SQL Server running here. I left the SQL Server running. So this is a virtual machine where I have SQL Server running over there and some database in there. So let's say that this, let me do a refresher here. See if this guy is still on recovering. Yeah, still. So whatever, let's get this guy here, DW Diagnosis, whatever this guy is. So my SQL Server that's running on this virtual machine is running all the time. And I'm wasting resource on this thing here. If the idea of start moving into serverless approach and specifically on Spark is like this. Okay, I'm in SQL now. I'm gonna run here a query on something, whatever. Get this guy here. Again, the results of the queries are not really important. The actions and the elements supporting the queries is what I need you to grasp, right? So let me see what I have in here. I have a table here. Let's get any table here, or this one, whatever this is. Script this table as a select to the clipboard, put in here, paste this guy here, just to, just to make this thing more analytical. I want to do a count on the rows of this table. So this is my big query here for this table. I mean, for my reports, I count my tables, 1,000 rows, perfect. I'm good. Now I don't need this anymore until later in the day or tomorrow because I'm gonna do something else. So what I'm supposed to do, and people, this sounds crazy. When I show this to the guys start laughing. I'm supposed to come here and say, hey, go to sleep. Stop. I'm stopping the compute, but keeping the data. Now, that is an operation like some people, just by seeing this dialog box going on here, they started like, I don't like to see this. People going to start calling me, the system is stopping. But that's how we work when we work with the Spark. When we work with the Spark is the compute, is the instance, right? Is the compute engine inside Synapse. And when I need to run my queries and start doing my analysis, I wake it up, come on, let's go work. And when I don't need it anymore, I can set it up to shut down automatically, and usually by default it's like that already. But I can come in, I can go in there and say, no, I don't need to use it for the moment. You can go sleep. And I leave, and when I come back here, I say, okay, I want to run my query again. I'm gonna go in here. If it was SQL, right? And that's why people usually don't do that in SQL. Not connect what? Start here. I go here and I start the instance again. Is it running? Okay, now it's coming. I start the instance again and then run my queries. That is the workflow. That's how you work with Spark. It sounds weird. We are not used to this if you are coming from other system environments like SQL, for instance. But that's how we operate in Spark. We put the engine down, put the engine up, and run our queries. So back in here, what is it? Which one is it? This. So back in here, this one. So that back in here, the idea is to have this guy here, right? This OLAP tables placed somewhere where I can have an engine that can work with that data all the time. And my environment here is the Synapse, right? That's where we want to run this. Let me take my chair here. It's bugging me, must be bugging you too. Let's put my chair down here. Sorry about that. And there you go, move. So inside Synapse, what we have inside there is these four engines. There is a fifth one, right, called the Data Explorer. It's there. If I'm not mistaken, it's not GA yet. They're still cooking it for it to work. It's available for you to use, but it's not GA production ready yet. So these are the ones we have, right? We have like in the keynote, we have just seen, she was talking about the dedicated SQL pool, which the traditional one, it's most people use, very reliable, everybody's comfortable with this one here. SQL is that kind of SQL that usually people keep up for a long time and then pay a lot of money on this guy here. And then everything else that's there in Synapse, the other engines, they work on the same style, on the same mindset that I just reviewed with you, right? Just presented to you. Serverless SQL Pool is the other session that's running parallel to this one here. So check it out later. Check the recording later. The pipelines, the transformation pipelines and Synapse, it's a graphic user interface to do these data transformations. So it's exactly what we're talking about here, but with low code or no code whatsoever, right? Low or no code whatsoever. So the idea is if you come from SQL and you are familiar with integration service, you can kind of bridge what you know about data transformations. You use graphic user interface into transformation pipelines. Actually, I think last year I presented that session here. I was checking my slide deck archive and I found that one with the Toboggan logo. So it must be I must have presented it in here. But today the one we are investigating is this one here, right? This particular engine. This is the Spark engine. So two things for you to become a hero, right? First one is understanding that the engine goes up and down, and there is a separation between the engine and the data. Where is the data? In the notorious data lake, right? It's in the data lake, some computer, someplace. It is in the data lake. And how is it going to be stored in the data lake? If it is Parquet files, if it is CSV files, like the other presentation earlier today was, there was some serverless SQL pool queries going on CSV files, a great presentation too. But the interesting thing about Spark, and that's where you have to start opening up your horizons, is when we work with SQL, any SQL offering, right? The serverless SQL pool, the dedicated SQL pool, or the regular SQL outside Synapse. When we work with SQL, even though we can store image in some of those offerings, we cannot process those images in those offerings, right? I can store an image, but I cannot like do AI on top of that image, for instance. But when we get those data in the data lake, and the idea of the data lake of storing any kind of data, right? Structure, semi-structure, or non-structure. The Spark pool does have libraries that can work with these other types of data that we would not be able to process otherwise in a relational engine. So to benefit, for you to really benefit from the Spark pool, when you start working with the Spark pool, we tend to go into our comfort zone, in our safe place of working with dimensional models, right? Work with star schema and our fact tables and dimension tables, and we should, especially for reporting. But when you do Spark, you are not confined to that. You are confined to that on a regular SQL engine, but in Spark, you can do a bunch of other operations with non-structured or semi-structured data like JSON files and some other types, Avro and some other ones. So and that's the idea of this session, right? We don't want to investigate this one in here because in here, It's low code. When you do no coding here, you are confined to whatever operations they're doing there, which is mostly tabular data, right? The idea of tabular data. With this one here, we have way more, breadth of options of operations to work with the data. One other thing to understand about the Spark Pool is, so this is my lake. I'm running under Synapse. And as you know, Synapse is an umbrella, right? Synapse is not one service, even though you go into the Azure portal, you ask to create Synapse. In fact, you are creating these guys, right? And Synapse is the environment that encapsulates all of these guys and stitch them together, and they work perfectly with all the permissions they need to talk to each other, to exchange data, or to share data among themselves. So it makes the environment easier for us to get going, right? We don't have to worry much about infrastructure. On the other hand, when we go into Synapse, and we're doing this in Synapse, we have to choose which one we want to go. And when we go to each one of those guys, they're offering us compute power, but we need to give to these guys what we want them to do. So if I go back here just quick to Management Studio, if this one here, if my instance is what would be my Spark engine, my database would be my data lake in Spark. My script here, my SQL script here, what is this? What is my SQL script? Is the next step in here. It's going to be what we call the Jupyter notebooks. Actually, Jupyter notebooks is a particular technology. We have just notebooks in Azure Synapse, but they follow the same idea, right? It's their Microsoft implementation of this open source technology. So what we have in here, is notebooks. So to get started with Spark and Synapse in particular, because Databricks is the same idea, right? We're not talking about Databricks in here, but Databricks is exactly the same idea. So to get started is Synapse, Data Lake. You need a Spark pool that will be your engine that you're gonna put up and down as needed, and your code, what you want to do will be scripted out on the Jupyter notebooks. And for that, let's head back here to the browser. And yeah, so this one here, have it here on my mouse. Is too many monitors going on here, so sometimes it gets a little crazy. Let's see. Oh, there it is. All right. So let me get this browser here on the other screen. Okay, here we go. And get out of the way. So here's a Synapse. Oh, yeah. So here's a Synapse workspace that I have already created, right, to save time here for this session. So we don't have to, where's my workspace? Get my workspace back. So we don't have to wait for this thing to be deployed. And here's the point, now that you understand how the workflow happens, right? Here's the point when I want to share with you a valuable, I've considered very valuable, because I use this with my customers when they need to learn about these things. As I told you, I am a certified trainer, right? I run Microsoft official classes from time to time to multiple customers. And there was a change, and this is good news for you to become your Spark hero, and some other kind of heroes also in the Microsoft technology. There was a change to the Microsoft training approach beginning this year. In the past, all Microsoft books for learning, you have to pay for them. You have to be in a class in order to leverage them, and in order to get them and be able to do their exercises. Microsoft made all of those books and resources and the hands-on labs available for you for free, for anybody, available for you for free. and they are posted in GitHub. They are posted there's the Learn site, the Learn page in Microsoft, and there is also in GitHub. In GitHub, usually they keep the steps. So here is the link. I'm going to paste the link here in the chat window for you. And people who are watching this on the recording, they will have to pause the recording because I'm going to put it here now on the chat on the browser too. So you'll be able to see it here. There it is. Let me zoom in so you can see it correctly, right? If you just Google, right? Google Microsoft GitHub DP203, it will get you to the repo where the exercises for you to become a Superman Spark, if that's a thing, to get in here and collect the material to do what I'm going to show you how during my demo from this point on, right? To do what we're going to do in here. So all the instructions are in here. You know, there is a setting up element in here that will create the whole environment for you. It may require you to do some setups, install some Azure modules. So you have to be, you know, specifically on PowerShell Azure modules. So you have to be a little savvy on that one. But for the most part, all the instructions are here. See, the days are there, and the labs and the exercise files and the sample data, everything is in there. So what I'm going to show you from now on here is actually from here. So it's just my way to support you to get you know, more to get smarter on Synapse Spark Pool. All right, before I get there, let me get here to the portal and show some other stuff around for the environment so it can make sense what's going on. So this is the resource group that those scripts create, and they have this suffix here. So, you know, in the Spark notebook, it will show up. Sometimes they'll have to supply this suffix just because of the exercise and how the exercise is set up. And as you can see here, you have a lot of exercises in here. Like if your Spark knowledge is like that skinny guy and need to develop muscles, you need to exercise. So this is the way to exercise. You're going to do a bunch of exercising here and get ready, get hands-on with the Spark. What we have here is our Synapse workspace. Let me zoom in here so you can see that better. We have our Synapse workspace. We have our lake, like I showed you on the slide deck. We have our lake, and we have a Spark pool that was created by the script as well, right? We have these three guys. So they are already there. I'm going to show you how to create one so you can get, you know, smart about that one. But they are already there, ready for us to start doing some, showing some of the code, some of the things we would, you know, some of this we could do in the GraphQL user interface, but like I mentioned in the session description, there are situations when you have to do coding for the data transformation. So how do we operate with this guy here? It's funny, right? Because I just mentioned that this guy here, the Spark pool right here behind my head, Apache Spark pool, it belongs inside Synapse. And it really does. It's there. But depending how you create it, sometimes it pops up out of the managed resource group and shows up in here. It's just what resource group it belongs to. So in this case, the script registered the Spark pool into this resource group instead of the managed resource group. That's all. All right, so if I go here to Synapse, let me get this a little bigger. Hope it's big enough. If I go here inside Synapse, from the Azure portal itself, and there's kind of an ambivalence here because, you know, it can go to two places to do the same thing. And Microsoft has this approach. Usually they provide you more than one way, at least three ways of doing the same thing, and you choose the way that best suits your particular use case. So like if the system operator that does not think about data analysis or data transformations, but is the one that manage the consumption of resources in Azure, is the one that's supposed to come here, nobody else has access to that, you could do it through the portal, right? You come and create a Apache Spark pool through the portal. So you come in here, the person would come in here and would create the Apache elements. Now, when you create that Apache Spark pool, And again, just for reference, right? So you don't lose track of what we're doing. What we are creating here is this guy, right? Is this resource inside Synapse that will get my Jupyter notebook and will process my data. So when I come in here, what happens in here is, because this is a compute, it's almost like creating a VM. So you need to specify what kind of a capacity you want that VM to have, right? What kind of computing power you want that VM to have. Of course, a name for the thing. Let me get this a little bigger so I can see better too. So, demo 01, data volume. And here is the compute capacity. Now, when you work with compute capacity, you can scale up and you can scale out, right? There are two possible scalability elements. Regular SQL Server can only scale up. It cannot scale out. The dedicated SQL pool and the serverless SQL pool, they both scale out. The dedicated SQL pool scales up to DW1000, and after DW1000, it starts scaling out, and the serverless SQL pool manages itself. So here's the same thing. If I have a taste, I need to probe my data. I must do some data profiling beforehand so I can have, which kind of car I need to drive my thing, right? Depending how much wood I want to get to the fireplace, I need a truck, I need a big van, or whatever I want to do. So in here, you come and say, I'm going to work with my data. I don't have much of a data volume. I can come and get like a small Spark cluster with nodes that are very, very small. I may have a lot of data, but a lot of small tables, and I'm going to be running them in parallel. So I may need small clusters, or small nodes, I rather say, right? Small nodes, not that much memory, tables are not that big, but I have a bunch of tables to deal with. So perhaps I want to scale it out to up to 53 clones of those nodes, right? They can replicate themselves to deal with slice of the data as needed, depending on the data lake and the files there are there in the data lake. And perhaps there are more than one notebook running. So some notebooks are running with small files in Parquet format. Some other notebooks are running with CSV files, small CSV files on another one. So here can come and define, how much of scale up here and how much of scale out down here, right? And you have an estimated price here, how much that's going to be, depending, one times the other. And that's it, right? This is that's all that is in terms of computing when you collect these guys. Could have a scale, a big one in there. Now I'm gonna add just a small one. I don't want to spend a bunch of my credits. I'm gonna get this guy like this. And the executors for this Spark pool is also to manage the distribution of not to manage, but to actually execute the distribution. So it manages how many nodes will be out there. Let's go ahead and create this one and create. So, just to make a comparison, what I'm doing here is creating those SQL instances, right? Each one of these pools, the actual pool, is like an instance. And this instance has multiple VMs underneath it, right? Behind it. You see, as just one instance, it will distribute the loads as needed. All right, deployment succeeded. I like that green mark there. It really, fits me. I like that success thing. So let's go ahead and jump to the other one. Here's the workspace. So if I go here to the workspace, the other place where I can see that, of course, is here on the, there is this palette here on the left side where you can browse around and see your elements in Synapse, your data lake and your scripts, your transformation pipelines, what's going on in the environment, and here for resource management. In particular, compute management and links to other resources outside Synapse. So up here, we see our SQL pools, right? And there is one here, a dedicated SQL pool that's running there. And here is the Spark pool we have just seen, right? So I can do that operation from the Azure portal or from the Synapse workspace. So it works either way. And it's exactly the same thing. There is no changing here. So I have my data, and here's my data, right? I can browse, again, my data from the workspace or from the portal. So here's my data. There is this folder here that's specifically for the scripts. And here we get a bunch of Parquet files, folders in here. Let me see which one I want to go. Just quick. Let's get this guy here. 1 second. Let me choose one of these guys here. Let me see. What are my notes? Lost my notes. All right, so let's see here. Sales POC. My mouse. There we go. So we got some CSV files there, right? We can browse. And you know that you can work with these guys here in a dedicated SQL pool. If you've been around here in the session today, you have seen other people coming here, and you can right-click on these guys and take a look on the preview of the data. So there is a SQL pool going behind the scenes and look at what is in there. So you can take a look on the data in here, and of course you can use the serverless SQL pool coming out of from here, right? You can ask a select statement from there. So this one, it's parallel. It's actually happening in the other session. What we really want to see is how we do that in Spark. So how we go about Spark? Yeah, for the Spark support, I mean, for this for interact with this data through Spark, like I showed you on the slide deck, you need a notebook. And this idea of notebooks, they are here on the development where you create SQL scripts, like I could have created one from there. I can create the Data Explorer scripts, right, using Kusto, KQL, or I can create what we have just seen, right? Would be my Jupyter notebook, but it's actually a notebook inside Synapse. See, there we go, inside Synapse. So if I click here and create a notebook, and get some real estate here for us. Yeah, this one stays. There we go. And you off too. Done. So if I can get here, I just got my my editor in a browser for notebooks. You can integrate these things through Visual Studio Code if you like, and that is a way to connect these guys there. But here in the browser is what most people go, and always keep in mind that whatever you do in a browser, if you don't save, you lose. And when you go in here, what do? You have to choose which instance, which SQL Server instance, right? Which Spark pool you want to use to run your script. So if my script is that one that's kind of a small, it's just for me, nobody's gonna use, I can pick this guy here. If there are other people working with me on this pool, our jobs may fail when you run one of these cells in the notebook. They may fail because may not have enough memory to run both of our elements. So then we start to call support, say what's going on, and people will say, "Oh, I think you need another pool there for you." And when you create these pools, because this is compute, is bare compute. It runs a Linux and a Spark installation inside Linux, and a lot of libraries, right, installed inside or runtime environments, I rather say, installed on those VMs. So when you go in Synapse, you can choose which runtime environment you want to run your code, right? You can choose one of these languages because you are in Microsoft environment, and Microsoft has their own programming language, right? The flagship programming language that used to be Visual Basic or VB.NET, but now it's C#, right? C# is the language. So here you have the runtime environment to do C#. And yes, I'm talking to you now as a developer, right? You are a developer. When you come here into data engineering, into Spark, you are going to write code. You're going to be someone that will, say goodbye to the graphic user interface elements, and drag and drop stuff, and you're gonna write the transformations by code, and you have to pick a language to do that one. Scala is one of the originals, one from the environment. And the most popular one is definitely Python, right? PySpark, Python with PySpark. So pretty much it is the most popular because um, it's very pervasive. I think that's the right word because it works in multiple environments. A lot of people are comfortable doing Python. It's very popular among the, data scientists and data analysts, so they know how to play with these things here, and it's very extensible. There are so many libraries out there that you can import into your notebook. So to kind of wrap up, getting ready to finish our session here, I brought in the notebook. I thought I had. There it is. I brought in the notebook for that GitHub link I shared with you to run with the data in the lake. So here it's saying, I'm going to that sales POC folder that I have just shown you. Make sure that there is a Spark pool running. So again, if there is no compute, if I don't start the instance, I I cannot run my script. So let's go and connect to one of them. Let's get to the one that created over there. And like I told you before, there's always this suffix in here because there may be multiple people there trying to run this notebook. So every time you deploy this thing on your environment, you're gonna pay for this. So you need to have an Azure subscription. This thing costs money. Microsoft is sponsored this. I'm using Microsoft credits to run this thing here. But if you decide to do on your own, someone's gonna pay the environment for this to work. Yeah, so there you go. I'm on the pool. Is the pool operational? It doesn't seem so. Let me see here, just quick. Let's go back in here. Spark pool. Yeah, let's see. So get in there. Back in here. Minimize this guy. So yeah, so this one here is just a memory element. You shouldn't complain about anything. Let's go ahead and run that guy. So it's bringing it up. Every time when you run it for the first time, right? It's trying to connect in there. It's going to take forever here to do just an assignment because it's turning the instance on the fly based on execution. So it's going to take a few dozen seconds in here for this one to go. Next time I run, the pool will be already up. So it would run way faster. So to warm up, it always takes a little longer. And the regular workflow when you go there is, and this is another thing that it was kind of implicit when data engineers working SQL Server doing SSIS. They had this already there, but there was not really very, named in front of them. Like when you go into SSIS, you can get multiple data sources, right? You can connect data sources, you get data from multiple data sources, you can have them in parallel, but there was always one pipeline. There was always one row, like in that arrow, right? That goes from one step to the next step, even if in the data flow you have multiple parallel steps. There is always one data flow. So you do a join, you get another data flow that joins to the main data flow. There is always one data flow. And here in the Spark context, right? When you do Spark and you're working with the Spark lingual, they call that a data frame. So there is always this idea of a data frame. Where is it here? There is always this idea of a data frame. So the data frame is nothing else but that pipe that, if you're a SSIS guy, that pipe that gets the data flowing from start to end. So did it run my thing in here? Look at that. Took 1 minute to run my thing. I'm still running. Still trying to. Sometimes it may take up to 5 minutes to warm up a Spark pool. So we have to wait here a little bit. Down here, what do? You bring the data from whatever it is, in our case here from the lake. You bring the data from whatever it is, whatever lake you are using, into memory, because everything that Spark does, it does in memory. Like SQL Server, right? You do select on a table. SQL Server will try to cache that cache that data from the table into the memory buffer inside SQL Server. So it's kind of the same operation, but we always have that perception that tables that are so large that we have to always do that I/O, right? The page I/Os in between storage and memory. And some tables are like that, but a lot of other tables, they fit in memory, they stay in memory. That's what we want to have all the time. What ended up happening here in Spark is Spark doesn't do I/O. Everything that Spark does, it does in memory. So when you create those Spark pools for the nodes, for Spark pool is a collection of nodes, right? So the node must have enough RAM memory to cache in memory the entire table and tables if you are working with more than one in memory, and do all the transformations in memory. And once it's completed, then you dump the data back into the lake when the data is finished processing, right? So that's another, it seems like a different mindset, but it's actually the same thing that happens in SQL. It doesn't happen like that in SQL only when there is not enough memory. There's that pagination, right? The I/O pagination. And here's the code, right? This is what you start doing when you do coding. You ask to, it's kind of an object orientation. So you create an object, and the object will have the methods to work with those, with the data frame, with the data. And here you have some annotations in there about what operations you can do with the data. Yeah, I think that is pretty much it. Just waiting for the pool to finish warming up. There we go. It took 2 minutes and 56 seconds, almost 3 minutes to warm up the pool. So if I go up here, it should see, yeah, it's not showing green here in my environment for some reason. Usually there is a green thing element in there. If I run this guy again, it should run in seconds. See, less than a second. Because now my pool is up, memory is there, the CPU is there, it's good to go. So let's see if this guy here is gonna go. Let's see. So this one here is read, loading to memory. This particular folder, actual file, there's a whole file there. That was just the folder. So it's bringing this file here with a particular format. And this is when you start, some people start crying, say, oh, I'm so in love with my, my window there, my dialog box, where if, select these things from combo boxes. Yep, in here you will have to type. So let's see if this one flies. Nope, it failed. Trace back. What happened? Java error. Format ID. There we go. An error occurred while loading the data. Path does not exist. Let's see here. Let's try to debug this here just quick. Demo gods are not very happy with me today. Well,
we've gone a bit past time on Monday.
I'm past time already. All right, sorry, I apologize. So I hope that is enough for you to get started. And are there questions?
Let's just have a look. Whether people have put any in the chat. There seems to be a few in the chat. Maybe you can answer. People can still see the chat. Are they related to your session? No. 1447. Yeah. So right, there's some in the chat.
I will go back there in the chat when we wrap up here. I will see from 6 in the morning here, my time, down. And any questions I see there, I try to reply in the chat. Thank you for having me again. I hope you have learned something new about Synapse and Spark.